Alright, we're back. So this particular motor build is going to have the old back plate that I ran on the 3.3, which had at least 6.5 gallons plus whatever else, because this was not new. It's still in really good shape, so I'm going to be keeping it. I am going to be putting some Acer ceramic bearings in this one, just because that's all I have right now. I bought these more for the 3.3, but I'm kind of interested to see how this 2.5 will run. And I got a nice lightly used piston and sleeve to put in, so I think it'll be interesting. But if I had some new metal, steel, non-ceramic, I would use those. I think the ceramics might last longer, so that's why I got these. This is the first time I play with ceramic bearings, but right initially off the gate, by opening the package and spinning the bearing, it seems like they spin a lot longer, but it's also quite a bit lighter. There's significantly more play on these ones than there is on the metal steel ones, so that's not great to see. Interesting. Yeah, these are not cheap. I think they're 20 bucks each, I think. But then they have like a 15% discount or something, but they're not cheap. But I was told that these last longer than the steel ones, so we're gonna find out. But you can see how much they spin for how long. That's pretty good. So anyways, we're gonna find out what this 2.5 can do with these ceramic bearings front and back from Acer. The front bearing looks nice. Definitely got some nice thick centerpiece on the outside too, is nice and thick. Likewise with this one is definitely thicker than the Traxxas on the inside. So that is a improvement. I also enhanced the case on this one as well, just like the 3.3. So this one will also get a little bit extra fuel into the bearing on the port over here, and then just chamfered the bottom part of where the bearing will sit. This is a 2.5 crank, and I decided to do some work to it. So I took a Dremel and kind of opened it all up. I didn't open it up more than where the close, where it closes, but I did like kind of open it up a lot more than what it was. I also did this right here. I'm not sure how this is going to perform. This is the first time I mess with a crank, so I tried to mimic the Zero crank, so you can see how open this Zero crank is. And this Zero crank doesn't have a ramp, whereas the stock one kind of does. So if anything, this one's going to be without the ramp and more open volume. This one probably has, less response on the bottom end than this one, and this one's even more open than this one. So my thought process is, if Zero designed this for the 2.5, this open, I don't think this can be worse. And then for the opening over here, I kind of tried to do something similar. I'm not sure how close I got, but I tried. I didn't want to cut anything here because I think that'll cut too much weight off and affect the balance of the crank. I'm sure cutting stuff out here affects the balance of the crank as well, but I guess we'll find out. And then just to compare, this is a 3.3 crank, and this is the 2.5 crank, which I think this is a lot more open than this, so technically putting this in a 3.3 would yield some good results too, I would think. But yep, that's the difference. So that's that. So we're gonna have that. And that's it. I also run the LC4 plugs on these motors, especially with the high revving and always staying in the high RPMs. The medium plugs have a thicker coil, so they are more resistant to heat and abuse, so they last longer than the hot plugs, and they work really well, so that's what I use. So I'm gonna install this. Install this bearing here. Now, this Huddy tool is not necessary. If you don't want to get this Huddy tool, you just have to take a heat gun and heat up the crankcase, and you know, use your crankshaft as your guide to put the bearings in. But this is really nice to have, especially when you're, you know, working with engines often, and you like to tinker around with these things. So this thing's in. Nice. Now I'm going to get to the other one. And this case is not new. This is actually the case that came from the 2.5 and the initial videos that I started making recently. So that's where this case comes from. Let's put this here. And then we will put this. And then you want to make sure that you're kind of centered with everything before you press the bearing in. So once you know the bearing is straight, looks pretty good, so it's ready to go in. And that's it. Nice and tight. You don't need to over torque it or anything. Alright, so now we got the Acer ceramic bearings in this thing. Yep. And I'm not sure if you can see, but through here you'll be able to see the chamfer, and the chamfer will help. You know, if you can visually see that the chamfer is, you know, is cut deep enough for the bearing to get some extra airflow, then you know that the chamfer is going to be good. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be quite interesting. So now I'm going to put this, let's measure this, let's measure the OD of the crank pin, 4.18, 4.14, 4.17, 4.19, 4.15, 4.17. So a brand new one is around 4.19. And so this one hasn't been used very much. It's a pretty new one. You can tell that there's not much wear here. It's not brand new, but it's very close. Also another thing too, you guys might notice this piston right here. You can notice that it's not round. I'm not sure if this is a new design from Traxxas, but this came out of a brand new motor. Well, I have a brand new motor that has the same design. This one isn't brand new, as you can see. It has had gas in it. But this one is also the same design. So Traxxas somehow has a lot of engines that have a different design piston, which this design, you know, obviously is designed more in the sense that there's more structural integrity near the wrist pin. So that's pretty cool. I'm not sure if that's a one-off thing or not, but I also massaged the oil passage holes. So the oil passage holes are bigger, just a little bit bigger. I kind of do that to all my engines, and I really don't see much wear on the crank pin over the life of the engine. I have not done any work to the sleeve. The sleeve is completely stock, so the only thing I have done is work on the crank so far. You can see here that it's all shiny, so it has been ran, but I will do a few more tanks above 200 Fahrenheit at idle for a little bit, because it does not seem like it's fully broken in, but there's like a tight spot and then it goes up and then it gets tight again, so I'm not sure, but so this is kind of where the pinch looks like, or where it stops. So that is going to be 0.95 from the top. Yep, so 0.93 there, 0.96 there, so around 0.95 from the top is where the pinch is at right now. So that's a good indicator, I guess, of where this motor is going to start its life. Well, that's nice and tight, so that's different. So putting the crank in was tighter than what I'm used to, so that's really good. You can tell that the crank spins a lot more freely with these bearings. Oh my, okay. That's a very noticeable difference just over here. Okay. So as long as the engine is consistent and it drops back down to idle smoothly, and it doesn't overheat or anything, I'll say that the crank mod is a good mod. But putting those ceramic bearings might flaw the test a little bit, because that might make the engine run a little better than what I'm used to, and I might think that that's because of the crank work. But as long as the engine runs well, idles, tunes consistent, doesn't act it doesn't act weird, then I'll be really happy. If it does, and I can't get, you know, a good solid tune on there, I'll put back a stock crank. Now this is, you know, essentially just research and development, and that's what makes this fun. But I gotta get this sleeve in there, so let's do that without damaging it. What the heck is wrong with this here? So I use WD-40 to kind of keep everything nice and lubricated. Might not be the best thing that everybody agrees with, but alright. Just cleaning this up with some Neverdol because it's having a hard time going in. And I'll clean the case too as well. Although the case has been cleaned multiple times, I'll re-clean it up. So Neverdol should make this a little bit easier. It is a used case, it's not new, so it's definitely seen some heat. And I'm not claiming that I know everything about nitro, so this is for me just fun to experiment and see, you know, what happens. I don't claim myself to be a modder or anything like that. I just enjoy tinkering and playing around. Yeah, Neverdol makes things really clean. Look how nice this came out, just wiping it down. So, you know, this thing's gonna work really good. Let me wipe this down with some WD-40 a little bit here. Get this Neverdol stuff out of there. And I'm making these videos also for myself to document the progress of the engines that I'm putting in trucks and how they run, or you know, what kind of configurations they have. So yeah, it's incredible, these bearings. I would not have expected the bearings to spin that much or that freely. That's like free power right there. It's like not having anything. It's like an air, it feels like. It's crazy. Might have to warm this case up a little bit. doesn't really give me a good feeling for when I take this thing apart. I'll probably have to get the tool that they sell online. I think it's a 3D printed tool that basically goes in the sleeve and it grabs onto the exhaust port and you can pull it out instead of using the piston with the zip tie. So I think that I'm probably gonna order one of those just because it's probably gonna put less wear or less stress on the rod by doing that. But I typically do warm the case up when I bring the sleeve up to try to make it that much easier. But anyways, yeah, so everything is in. You can see it's all nice right here. This is what the crank looks like, and hopefully that's gonna work good. Yep. I don't really put oil or anything in here. I wouldn't say that the piston and sleeve is dry, but I do like to spray a little bit of WD-40 in here once I have it together. The piston and sleeve was coated prior, so but yeah, so anyways, now it's pretty much all lubricated. Alright, so I know this video is going to be long. Appreciate you guys sticking around, whoever has stuck around so far. So we learned that the crank pin is at 4.17 more or less in OD. The rod is fairly new. Maybe the piston, sleeve, and rod has, let's be safe and say that conservative and say it has 1 gallon in it. The truck that it came out of was in really good shape, so I don't think it had more than 1 gallon in it. And then we know that the piston goes up and stops at 0.95 millimeters from the top of the sleeve, which if you consider the 3.3, I started with that motor was at 0.65 up from the sleeve when I put that one together. So alright, now we're gonna put this together, and I need to get bolts for that, so let me stop the video and I'll be back. Alright guys, I'm back. I took the liberty to prepare myself to find the bolts that I need. Washer, backplate. Backplate is nice and clean. I applied RTV over here, so when you want to seal your backplate, if you want to, it's probably just an extra precaution. I didn't seal the back plates on the previous 3.3 or 2.5 just because I was opening them up quite frequently just to inspect them and ensure that my fuel mixture fuel oil combination setup was appropriate. Coming back from the hobby from 12 years ago, I just remembered but didn't really remember, so now I kind of know what's going on, and I'm going to seal this back plate up because I know I won't need to open this engine up as frequently. So essentially, you do that. You want to make sure that the surface that you're applying your RTV, and this is for anything, is nice and dry and not oily. So if you can get like a degreaser, like denatured alcohol or IPA, iso purple alcohol, I guess. that would be great. So then you'll have a better adhesion with the RTV. So you want to make sure that these are facing up. For the 2.5 and 3.3, it's not as important because I don't think you're going to hit the piston skirt, because the skirt doesn't go down as that far, but you want to make sure that that is oriented up because it helps redirect the air when or the air charge within the chamber during the cycle. So I'll put this on now, and you kind of just orient that appropriately. You want to make sure that you get this on. You try not to make as you want to try to just push it in straight and not twist it around or anything like that, just so you don't move the RTV around. This back plate definitely seems to, have withstood the abuse pretty well, the bushing, and there's no real wiggle, so I'm going to reuse it. I'm not too concerned about any potential air leaks going through the shaft and the bushing. These ones, you just use your judgment when you're tightening everything down. Alright. So when you put your one-way bearing on, I guess Traxxas puts this washer in there. To be honest, I haven't put that washer in for the longest time, and I haven't had any issues, but they do put that washer in. So that's just, if you want to do it completely right, then that washer goes in. It is a different size from the clutch bell, so just be aware of that. It is a size that isn't used on everything. So you'll see a little bit of RTV, that goes around. I would let that dry. I wouldn't wipe it off, but I guess you could. But I'm just gonna leave it. So now you want to, either you want to put the head on or you want to put the carb on. I guess it just depends on your preference. I guess I'll put the head on. You want to make sure that your head button is nice and flat. You don't want to have any pitting or anything like that. If there's any pitting, you want to try to smoothen it out as much as you can. And then you also want to make sure that your gasket is nice and flat. Even if it's not completely flat, it probably would work, but you want to... Alright guys, my battery died, so I was able to get a few things added on while the battery's charging. So I got the head on. Just want to communicate that you want to make sure you do crisscross pass pattern, so always opposite, like a star pattern, and when you're tightening down, you slowly do each one so you don't, the head doesn't get torqued too much on one side, and it causes one side to be torqued more than the others. I also put the header on. The header, I did RTV. These headers definitely don't have a good fit with the case. There's quite a bit of gap between the case and the outer rim. Even with the orange rubber, it's just not enough. So RTVing this is a huge, I would say, necessity if you want a completely sealed system. And now I will showcase, or try to showcase, how I apply the RTV for the carburetor. So before you apply RTV, you really want to know where your carburetor is going to fit or sit on the truck. And so I kind of already have put a little dimple on the case, so I know that the halves that meet that I guess mold marking is where I used as a gauge point. So I'm going to try to align both of those to be equal, and from once it's like that, then you tighten it up and you kind of know that that's where the carb is going to be. You really don't want to move it once the RTV is set, and if you can avoid it, that's definitely the better thing to do. So I will apply RTV over here. I'm going to try to do like a nice even coat. This is a pretty tight fit, so I probably have a little bit too much on right now, but we're going to do our best. It will get pushed up. It won't go in the engine. Or it won't, it won't go, the engine won't ingest this stuff, let's say. Because it'll get squeezed out from the top. But if you can avoid that, it'll be a cleaner setup. But you do want to have a nice even coat. So this is how I'm going to prep mine. You just want to make sure that there's nothing over here if you can avoid it. And before you put it in, you also want to make sure that you have this guy in there, and you want to also put RTV on this right here, and you want to make sure that the bolt, the nut is on the side that you'll be able to reach. So for the T-maxx, it's on this side, but for the Revo, it's on the other side. So for this, I basically just put it right in the hole, more or less. That's all I do. So that's kind of how that works, and then you'll just put this in. It should go in. It should go in either way, so I'm not sure why I didn't go in the other way, but you should be able to make it go in either way. And so now you can see the RTV there. It's nice and covered. You want to make it nice and covered there. And then for this one, the nut will seal it. More or less, the nut will seal it once you put the nut on. So now we're going to put our carb straight through, understanding the orientation and all of that. You just want to go straight in if you can make it in. Let's see here. Might not be in all the way. Know what the trouble is here. 1 second, guys. Let me use this to push it a little bit further in. Yeah, it's just the case is playing hard with me right now. Yeah. Sometimes these are easy to go in, and then sometimes they're not so easy, so this might be one of those times. It's not so easy to go in. Alright, so now this is in. You guys can hear that outside, the thunder. It's raining pretty hard outside right now. Alright, so I'm gonna wipe this stuff off. So now got our TV there. So now I got the alignment pretty good. You do want to make sure that when you tighten this, you're putting forward pressure down, just so the carb is sitting completely flat and pushed down all the way. And you'll know that that will be sealed. You don't want to torque it too much, because then you're going to break the neck of the carb, but it can handle some good force. Yeah, this is off a little bit. Move it just a second here. This is better. Alright, so now I will just put the dab, well, I'll put a little dab on the end of this right here, even though it's probably fine because there's some inside, but that should do it right here. Sorry, I keep pulling the motor away from me and I forget about the camera, so I apologize for that. But this is how it's, you know, the end result more or less looks like this. You'll see a little bit of RTV coming out. There is that Traxxas O-ring on the top, but it's not on the bottom. And I have, in both my 3.3 and 2.5 did not have the O-ring on the bottom, from what I remember. I'm pretty sure I RTV'd the carb. That I know makes a difference. The back plate is not as important as the carburetor. So now basically So now I can put the new LC4 plug on. We'll start with a brand new one. Always verify that it works before you put it on. It works. The medium plugs do work with 20% nitro, totally fine. You just get much better life out of them, in my opinion. Okay. That's odd. Interesting. This coil is half on, half off on the side of the thing. Okay, I don't know, this one might not last very long. We'll find out. You don't have to over torque this either, so the threads on the head button, they're not that strong, so you just want to be careful. Alright, so now I'm going to put the pull start on. Pull start is also important that you put a little bit of oil on this, so not just WD-40, but you want to put some oil, whatever oil you want, engine oil, two-stroke oil, whatever is close to you, but something that can keep this bearing lubricated, because you don't want it to seize, and I have seen them seize up, which is not fun because then it's stuck on the back plate. So I'm taking manual transmission fluid, AMSOIL. I like AMSOIL for all the car stuff and motorcycle stuff. I do like Redline transmission products as well. Let's see here. This should be clean. This is blue. That's odd. Well, I'm not sure that this oil is what is in the what the container says, but this might be the Redline shockproof oil. If it's blue, that's what it is. Which, yeah, that's exactly what it is. So you just basically want to put a little bit on the shaft for this to go on, and then you want to make sure that you put this washer right on here. Yeah, so this is Redline lightweight shockproof oil because it's blue, so that's what that is. And then you want to put the I guess the lettering facing forward with the bearing. That's kind of what you want to do. Let me just do one more thing. Kind of want to put some in the bearing itself. Alright, so that gives me a good sense of confidence that this bearing is very lubricated. I also want to mention that throwing one-way bearings in an ultrasonic cleaner is probably a bad idea. I did that, and shortly after the bearing seized up, so not sure if it's a coincidence or what, but I'm not putting one-way bearings or engine bearings in the ultrasonic cleaner anymore. And that's just a personal thing. If you guys have had success with the ultrasonic cleaner, that's great. I just, for some reason, I guess I must have been unlucky or something. Now, the next builds that I do on motors and whatnot most likely will be a lot shorter and cut, you know, in much shorter version. This is more of the in-depth way that I build these engines. And so the next motors that I go through and experiment with, which I will definitely be videoing, will probably be shorter, more concise, straight to the point. Yeah, that's perfect. You also don't want to over torque these, because if you do that, you're going to smush this pull start housing, and that's not great. It's not fun. It's not necessary. So yeah, this thing seems like it's going to work pretty good. It's got compression. I put the stock shim on, so the shim is a 0.3 in thickness. Yep, so that is how a 2.5 motor gets put together.